evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our Career Talk discussion on media today. I really appreciate your time on the long weekend. And thank you, Reem, for making out time on this hectic, long and busy weekend. So I would like to tell my target audience, be the student or the parents, today we are going to have a deep insight about the real world of media and how we can take this as a profession and what should we expect out of it. Before we go ahead, I'll just give a brief introduction about myself. Myself, Meghna Khan. I am the founder of MK Counseling Services. I help the students in aligning their passions and interest with the career of their choice. So today's topic of discussion is a career in media. And before we take the question answer sessions with our guest, I would like to give you a brief introduction about the media history. So thousands of years ago, our human ancestors painted on the walls of the caves, and that was in the form of mass communication that we know through pictures and markings. Our ancestors tried to communicate their experiences, ideas, and stories, and the target audience was very small. Mass communication truly took off with the rise of technology. The invention of the first commercial printing press almost 600 years ago in Germany really broke the barrier and pushed the communication to the front of human interaction. Later, around 150 years later, photography came into the picture and the whole scenario of media changed. It was not about words anymore. It was, pictures have become a rage. Then came the video and internet, and the whole definition of media and the scope of media changed, and there is a big boom in the industry. Imagining the journey of media from cave painting to today's slick ads on internet, it's unbelievable. And who knows what is next. So today I'm joined by the most enterprising and creative female leaders that I know, and the pride of Dubai, Reim El Houni. Thank you, Reem, for taking out time and being a part of this career talk.
Not at all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. So I'll give you a brief introduction about Reem as well. She's the founder and CEO of Ti22 Films and Dubai On Demand. She's a video expert, a strategic media consultant, and public speaker, among the many other hats she wears in a day, in and out. She has worked at BBC and Dubai One before starting her own 10 years back with Ti22 Films. Ti22 Films has won 25 New York Festival Awards and Cannes Corporate Media and TV Award. Wow, that is amazing. She has been a creative spark for many media campaigns, executed for multinational corporate houses, and also produced for broadcasters such as National Geographic, Discovery Channel are among the many others. Thank you, Reem. Thank you for joining us today. And we would like to have this session interactive. I would also ask the target audience, our parents and the students, to ask questions in the chat box while the whole conversation is going on. And we will definitely pick up each of the question, and Reem would love to answer that. So Reem, before we start this whole discussion, I would like you also to share some more insight about you, because I know my introduction is very less about you. You do much more than what I'm saying.
Firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity, Meghna. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to be speaking to hopefully some students who are interested in getting into this field, because I don't think there's enough information out there about getting into the media. So it's quite important. Exactly as you mentioned, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm someone who was very fortunate to have discovered my passion as a child. Like, I loved TV, I loved film, and I kind of knew very early on this is something I wanted to do. And as a result, we'll talk about it a bit more, but my first work experiences and internships were at the age of 16 at MBC, actually, the Middle East Broadcasting Center. So having that experience really kind of drove me forward into building a career in this industry. I did work my way up. You know, in our industry, it's a very clear ladder. You start off as a runner, you become a production assistant, you become a production manager, assistant producer. You have very clear roles that you take. So I've worked my way up all the way to an executive producer. That was when I was at Dubai One, and I became head of events at Dubai One as well. So that's a TV channel here in Dubai. And started my own company, Ti22 Films, shortly afterwards. But even then, it's evolved so much because we're in an industry that's always changing. So because the industry is always changing, you have to always change with it. So that's why I ended up introducing other brands. I introduced Dubai On Demand in 2014, mainly with a focus on creating online shows. I then followed that with Fusion in 2018, and that's focused on social media content because that's what everyone wants at the moment. They all are obsessed with their mobiles. And then Dynamite last year, which is focused on animation and graphics, and the DIY Video Academy, which is my lockdown baby. So that's teaching a lot of online courses because obviously with lockdown, a lot of people were more interested in learning. So that's where that came in.
And you're
So
also
that's the
going to
summary.
do a daily live TV show at Expo 2020.
Yes, that's right. So that's our most recent Ti22 Films project. We are producing a daily TV show from Expo. It's called Studio Expo. It'll start on the 1st of October, and I am the executive producer on that project.
Wow, I'm sure you will be doing an outstanding job for that as well.
It's a lot to do. It's a lot to do, but it's exciting. You know, it's something new, and it's a lot of opportunity to create something that will be both impactful and showcase to everyone, you know, what Expo is all about. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Reem, as you said that as a child, you always were very fascinated with the TV and the video world. So how did you figure out, or, at what time you realized that you want to take this as your profession? And what was your parents' role in that?
So I know that I was very fortunate because I come from Libya, Arabic country, but our sensibilities are Middle Eastern, very similar to India. You know, we are very conservative in a lot of ways. And the typical, careers that we have, like half of my family are teachers. So it's kind of like teachers, doctors, engineers. That's kind of the typical. However, my dad is in media and my dad's family are in media. So I think that they're in print. At school, we had an opportunity to start doing work experience. So I would always kind of go with my dad to his kind of print the printers. But then when I was 16, that's when I had my first proper internship or work experience. And as I mentioned, that was at the Middle East Broadcast Center. And I think it was having an experience like that so young, which is what made me realize that, yes, I've always loved watching TV, but this actually could be a career opportunity as well. I can actually take my enjoyment and my passion for viewing and being an audience to actually being behind the camera and creating content. So I am till now always grateful for that work experience opportunity that I had at the age of 16. And I value work experience and internships so much because I learned so much, and it kind of started my journey of like constantly wanting to be in different offices and learn how different broadcasters did it. And by the time I was 18, I was doing work experience at the BBC, and I was with them for about a year and a half that I ended up having my name as a credit on a TV show. And when that happened, that was the moment that I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I can be doing all of my life. So I'm a big, big, big believer in work experience and internships and starting early, because it's only when you're in the environment that you really kind of see what's possible and see if it's something that's the right fit for you.
Right. That is amazing, Reem, that you were able to figure out your passion and you were able to pursue it, and you had the right kind of support system around you. So with that in mind, I would like to ask you that what are the most important skills to have a career in media?
I just want to go back slightly before I touch on the skills, because the other part to me, being lucky in exploring so young, is that I actually was so sure that I wanted to be a camera person.
Okay.
So because the kind of the skill that I seemed to be strong at school and at university was camera work. And I
Mhm.
was someone who always used to walk around everywhere with a handy cam, film everything. And I was, I was almost more obsessed with filming it than living it. And so that's where I felt my strength was, until I started doing internships and experience in camera departments.
Mhm.
And when that happened, I realized what a physical role it was, and the
Mhm.
fact that you are on your feet all day long and you are carrying heavy equipment. And that's when I started to see that very few females were in camera departments and trying to, in the beginning I was like, why are there so few females? And then after a few months I was like, oh, this would be why. And they were very, very long days. And so although I know I was talented in that area, I
Mhm.
realized that that may not have been a long-term career choice for me. So
Yeah.
coming back to your question about skills, I
Yeah.
think, whatever skills you have, there's a place for it in media.
Mhm.
There are, for example, you'll find very, very detail oriented, organized people who tend to move into the role of producers, production management. But then you'll
Mhm.
find very, very artistic, creative people who will
Mhm.
move into being more of a director. And then you'll find like people who maybe love finance, but love movies. So there's a space for them to, head the accounting and the financial side of production. So it's
Mhm.
one of those worlds where whatever skill set you have, there is probably a role that is the right fit for you in the media world. It's just identifying it and kind of working towards that.
Right. So, do you think that, being a creative is an important requirement in this field, or a person who's not that great at creativity can still think about media as their career?
Absolutely, actually, I think anyone can. If you love movie, you love film, you love something unconventional, because it's not 9 to 5. Our industry is not 9 to 5 at all. You have to
Right.
be kind of open-minded and understand that things happen at odd hours and at odd times. So creativity is not always the number one thing that you need to
Right.
succeed. Having said that, it helps. And also it is something that I think the more you're exposed to other creative people, the more you start to learn and assimilate.
Right.
So I'll give you just one example. So I'm decided to focus on producing. So I'm a producer, and then I became an executive producer. I'm very organized, I'm very good at what I do.
Mhm.
However, I can direct. I'm capable of directing. I'm capable of being creative and, being behind the camera and directing. I don't think I'm as strong,
Okay.
but I can do it. And because I have the experience in both, when I'm having a conversation with a creative director,
Mhm.
I'm coming at it from a much stronger position. I'm coming at it from a position of, I might be talking about the scheduling and the budgeting, and the
Mhm.
creative director is talking about the lighting and the aesthetic. And it makes you a stronger producer when you have some creative knowledge, because then I'm able to say, well, actually, you can do it with this kind of lighting, or actually you can do it with this kind of style. So it definitely helps if you have some creativity, but
Mhm.
I don't think it's essential. I've seen many people in this industry who are just like organized or just numbers people, and they still succeed.
Right. So, as you're saying, Reem, that you are very good in production and you can do direction, but you know that it's not that much of your cup of tea. So, what are the different categories in media field people can focus? I believe journalism is also a part of media and mass communication, then editing and video editing. So, what are the different options people can explore under the umbrella of media?
So, media is a very large, vague term which encompasses so many different areas. So, like, I know that when I went to university, albeit many moons ago, it was divided into print, radio, and television. So, it was divided into three sectors. I
Yeah.
believe now you've got a lot of online, digital, journalism. These are all new fields that have come into that space as well. So, those are kind of the main main departments, if you like. And then within that, you can specialize. So for example, I chose to focus on television. So I didn't do print, I didn't do radio, I did
Mhm.
television. And then under television, you can then specialize even further in terms of the roles that you do, whether you go into producing, directing, filming, editing, there's a whole range of roles. The same would happen if you're in radio, the same would happen in print. And now one of the biggest areas is online and digital and content creation, where
Yeah.
you're almost encouraged to develop all those skills, because the more skills you have, and if you're able to film and edit and create your posts and you're going to be a much more valuable asset to any
Mhm.
company, and in an age where technology is actually what's leading.
Mhm.
So really, there's so many possibilities, but it all starts with defining whether you're in print, you're in radio, you're in television, or you're in digital. You define that, and then within that, you'll
Mhm.
find a range of roles.
Yeah, that's a good piece of information. So, as Reem, you said that online media is also existing parallelly. So, how different is the social media from the mainstream media?
It's a good question, because I think we're getting to a point now where social is really taking over. So the way I see it is mainstream is still has the credibility factor.
Mhm.
So when you tell people I'm, working on this TV show, or I'm working in this newspaper, the
Mhm.
credibility in terms of perception of how people think, they're like, oh wow, you're with the BBC, or oh wow, it's, whatever newspaper. So it has a different weight.
Mhm.
However, the reality is, more people are watching content online, and the skills that are required and the need and demand is higher online. So not
Okay.
everyone is going to understand that. And it
Mhm.
also depends where you live in the world. So in the Western world, there's a higher emphasis on online and digital. In the Middle East, North Africa, I'm presuming India as well, you still have a big weight on traditional media,
Yeah.
just because that's seen to be more attractive or more credible in a lot of ways. But the shift is there, and what you're seeing is being able to kind of leverage both. So if you've created a great TV show, how do you now really leverage that and create as much content out of that for online? Or how do you ensure that you drive traffic from online back to traditional? So
Mhm.
now it's becoming so important to be able to marry both worlds in order for either to succeed.
Right. So I can see a question from John. He says, I'm a creative person, but don't like being in front of camera, but like speaking. But radio seems to be a sector not doing well under media. What
John, that is an awesome question and so important, because believe it or not, I would say 90% of the people I work with do not like being on camera. So
Mhm.
it's one of those, you're not alone. It's very, very common. You're very, in fact, even Meghna herself has gone through an experience recently where she was
Yes.
almost pushed in front of the camera.
Yeah.
What I would say two things. I would say, I understand you may not be comfortable, but it's worth pushing yourself. And what you'll start to notice, you do it once, you do it twice, you do it 3 times, by time number 4 or 5, you will get more comfortable, because it's becoming so much more important. Just to give you like a few facts, a few statistics, 66% of people are more likely to remember you and refer you if they've seen you on camera.
Mhm.
That's pretty high. 66% is pretty high, which is
Yeah.
why you're seeing so many more people put themselves out there. Having said that, I do believe the era of audio is coming. So as much as I'm a video expert and I believe in video, audio is the next trend. So yes, radio might be dying a bit, but there's a whole world on social media that's about to erupt in the audio space. Like if I were you, I would get really serious on Clubhouse, for example. Start actually creating Clubhouse rooms, hosting rooms, be consistent with it, build a brand, build visibility through Clubhouse, through your audio. Start focusing on podcasting. What you're going to see change over the next year as well, you're going to see a lot of the other social media platforms, because Clubhouse is like a big threat to them, get very active with, I think Facebook already has space, rooms and spaces. And so I would say double down on the area where you're strong. So take Clubhouse seriously, take audio rooms seriously. However, push yourself on video because we're not quite there yet. So you want to be able to leverage both.
Yes, I would agree with Reem because, we do all have that inhibitions that how would we react in front of the camera. But I think with time and with the techniques and with the support around, you can face those issues and be camera friendly as well. Next, moving on, Reem, I would like to ask you, because at your time when you did your education, what I believe, like in current scenario, I know that there are graduation courses available in media and communication, but what career path or what educational career path you have taken to enter the media industry? What was your undergraduate choice or master's? What were those options were available at that point of time?
They were. I'm not that old. I'm old, but I'm not that old. So I
No, it's
yes.
between me and you. At my time, I was not aware of.
So yeah, I did do media studies. I did a bachelor's in media studies, and as I mentioned, we had the ability to specialize. So I
Okay.
specialized in television, and then within television, we had experience in everything from filming, producing, directing, editing. So all the various kind of roles or streams within television is what I studied for 3 years. But I want to say something like super maybe important stroke controversial is that I was also working at the BBC at the same time, and I learned more at the BBC than I did at university. And what was happening at the time was, I would, the way universities were in the UK, I'm not so sure about other parts of the world, but I only physically had to be there twice a week. Like the rest of the time, we were kind of working on projects. So I was at the BBC 3 days a week, and I was at university 2 days a week, right? And so would be using certain equipment, at the BBC, and then I'd go to university and I'd be using equipment that was, let's say, a generation older. So I'd be coming in and I'd be saying, oh, but don't we have XYZ? And half of them didn't know what I was talking about, or I had, people saying, oh, that's the newest, latest. So I'm a big believer that yes, university served me very well in terms of having an overall understanding. However, it was always my work experience and my internships that gave me the real life experience and what helped me get started career-wise. If it wasn't for those internships, especially in our industry is a very unusual one, where you start to really depend on people, so if I'm there and I'm in the office and I'm helping you and I'm a useful resource and I'm running around, I was offered jobs just because I'd been an intern, just because they already knew me, they were familiar with me, they liked me. It's like, oh, there's someone we can rely on. Yep, there's a vacancy, we'll offer you the job. So it was a much easier, faster route to employment than a lot of people who graduated with me who just focused on their studies. So we're in an unusual industry where I think parents need to understand that things happen at strange times, strange hours. I know I've repeated that a few times because I know my mom was very concerned, like when I was working with the camera department of the London studios. The London studios is a big, very, very big studio in London. They do some very, very popular TV shows. If anyone's familiar with UK television, they do things like the Graham Norton show and like big talk shows and a few sitcoms. And I would have to be there. I'd have to be at work at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and I'd finish at like midnight. And there were days that I'd like come home like fully clothed. And like, I remember like coming home and just falling asleep, and then like a few hours later I'd have to wake up and go. So it's one of those where, fortunately for me, I'm very grateful that I had parents who understood that environment. But I can totally imagine, like other parents going, where is this girl going at 4 a.m. in the morning? I can totally imagine it. And it's so just being aware as a parent that there's unusual activity that will happen, but that's usual in our industry. It's usual to be running around and staying late. And we had edit shifts that finished at midnight, and then the best time to film is always sunrise. So everybody wants you to be there before sunrise so that you can catch golden hour and see the sun go up, and all these things that may not make sense. But as a kid, as a student, you kind of need to experience it. You need to go through all of that to really get a taste of the industry you're about to go into.
Which makes me, realize that people think that media is a very glittery, glamour world, but it takes a lot of. I think when you were talking about the shifts and that you have to reach up early morning to get a better light, I was just thinking it's as comparable to a life of a doctor. You are on the toes all the time.
It is, and it also differs from one world to the next. So, for example, when you're doing live television, live television, whatever happens, happens. You just go with the flow, and that's
Right.
another thing actually I should talk about, is the level of stress.
Hmm.
The level of stress involved in live television is really high, like really high, because you're on air, everyone's watching you, something goes wrong, you need to be able to quickly react, quickly learn, quickly move. It served me really well. So I think because I've had that experience,
Hmm.
I'm pretty calm now in life. It's sort of like whatever goes wrong, I'm like, it's fine, we can handle it. But as an experience at the time, it was pretty stressful going through that. But
Hmm.
yes, your comment about it being like a doctor, you're on call, you have to be there. It's like clockwork. You have to be there. You have to be there early. You just can't miss things. So, and a lot of people don't realize that. You're right. They see the glitz, they see the cameras, and they're like,
Yeah.
this looks like fun. This looks exciting. They don't see the hours it took for you to get like that one shot, or how long you had to sit there standing. Just I remember once it was sunset. We were filming a boat on the beach at sunset, and sunset's pretty quick. If you've ever tried filming or capturing sunset, within seconds the sun is gone, right?
Yes.
And we're
Yes.
standing there, and it's like in that moment you're like, throw the net, throwing the net. It's just all so dramatic just to get that one shot. So
Right.
it's, yeah, just a few things to keep in mind.
Yeah, so I think people who are thinking about media as a career, they should also see the real aspect that you have to involve a lot of hard work. You have to be available round the clock, and you should be ready your 100% into that. With that, I'll take the question from Nusrat. She says, I like journalism and video by a friend and family that media is not suitable field for girls and I should look for a desk job instead of field job. What are your insights for the same? Nusrat, you need them to connect to us. We'll talk to them.
On a serious note, I mean, I talk about my immediate family as in my parents being very supportive, but all my relatives were not. All of my relatives thought, what is this girl doing? What job is she doing? Who does this? This is not the right field for her. This is not. Really understand where you are right now, Nusrat. Be strong, push back. There are a lot of opportunities for females in this industry. I am one. I've been in it over 20 years. In fact, the best people I work with are females in this industry. Most of my team are female as a result. So I'm just, and also I'm emphasizing the part where you need to be flexible and you need to work around the clock. However, there are desk jobs even in our industry, so there's a variety of different type of job in media. And the key to this is for you to have that experience. It's like just try and push them enough to get work experience, get an internship, understand and explore for yourself all the possible roles. You might decide you'd prefer to be, I don't know, a production coordinator who sits at the desk. I don't know. But unless you go and you experience it, you won't know the various options and what they entail. So to answer question number one, definitely suitable for females, definitely. But the tip I want to give you is get that work experience so that you can come back and talk knowledgeably with your parents and say, here are the possible roles, and these are the ones that I want to move forward with. But go for it. Don't be dissuaded, is what I would say.
So, Nusrat, I think it's more important that you really want to do, and advices will flow from many people. It's important for you to align your interest. So try, as Reem said, the earlier you enter into this field, do a lot of internship, try to find mentor for yourself, and then see how comfortable you are in doing that particular kind of work.
Can, can I
We
also
have,
just add
yeah,
before we move on? I just also want to add that
yeah,
different types of production offer different types of role, right? So, for example, television is much more hectic than corporate videos, for example.
mhm,
So it's just understanding that, because I saw you mention that you enjoy journalism and video reporting. So if you're a reporter for a TV show, that is going to be hectic. But if you're a reporter for like a weekly podcast, that's not going to be that hectic. So it just depends on also the environment that you're in and the type of media or the type of company and their output. So it's worth, even when you're doing your internships or your work experience, is to try different types of company. Try a TV station, try a production company, try a digital company, because you're going to come across that the same role of being a reporter will be different in each one of those types of company. And one of them may feel like a better fit than the other.
yeah. We'll move on to next question. It's by Samrat Singh, and he says, I'm good with video editing and want to be a YouTuber. However, it is hard nowadays to get a large enough following to make it financially viable. What would you advise to build a large YouTube following? It's again a
YouTube
new
is
trend.
hard.
Yeah.
YouTube is hard. It is very competitive. The key to any social media platform and growth is being consistent. You have to be consistent. I obviously haven't seen your channel or the kind of content you put out, but you need to make sure. So let's say if you've got the highest engagement on a Tuesday, that every Tuesday you're posting that video, and that you don't forget your audience during the week, that you do your best to promote the upcoming episode, that you're actually sharing that content in other places to drive traffic to your YouTube. But one of the biggest tips I can give you is to actually leverage any new feature that you see a social media platform introduce, because it's in that platform's interest to promote you if you're using their feature. So, for example, with YouTube, maybe about a month ago, they introduced YouTube Shorts. So
Yeah.
YouTube Shorts has just arrived in the UAE, which means that if you want to be visible on YouTube, it would make sense to really leverage YouTube Shorts, because not as many people are doing that yet. So you will stand out, right? So you always need to be looking at where are the spaces that you can stand out. So number one, look at the new features. Number two, always pay attention to what are people searching for. Are people even looking for your type of content? So one of the best ways to do that is, just so you're aware, the most popular questions asked at the moment online are how to and how do I, right? So people are trying to learn. So are you educating people with your content? If you're answering people's questions, there's a higher chance of your YouTube content doing well, because when people go into YouTube, they normally type a question. They normally type, how do I do XYZ, right? And you want your video to pop up. So make sure that when you're planning your video content, you're answering questions. And if you're sitting there thinking, how do I know what questions people are asking? Well, you can go to something called the Google Keyword Tool. The Google Keyword Tool, it will allow you to search for or see what other people are searching for right now. Or you can go to sites like Quora, Quora, and that shows you again what people are asking. So when you get an idea like, wow, there are a lot of people asking these questions, then it might make sense for me to create videos that answer those questions. Again, that will help with your reach. So number one, consistency. Number two, try new features like YouTube Shorts. Number three, make sure you're answering questions. And number four, maybe YouTube isn't the place for you. There are other platforms that are easier and faster for you to grow on. So have a think of, like, at the moment, LinkedIn is one of the easiest places to grow. So think about which platform is the right one and where you can really stand out.
That's a great advice, Reem. We have another question from Devika. She says, I'm passionate about the music industry. For music, I would like to perform, but I'm struggling because of stage fright and not getting any opportunities to perform or get noticed. I'm attending classes for instruments and vocals so that I have a music knowledge record. What do you think is the best way to build up on this field? Is there a way I can look for an internship in this field and start one?
Music is tricky because it's subjective. Like, I need to like your songs for me to be interested and follow you, which I don't know. Maybe you can let me know in the chat bar what kind of music you do, if it's original or if you're, which genre you're in. But whatever industry you're in, whether it's music, whether it's art, it's going to be about having a strong online presence. So
Yeah,
what I would recommend that you do is, I don't know how active you are on Instagram, for example. Instagram is a good place to just start growing a following and maybe educating people again. So it's a combination of education and giving people a behind the scenes look at what you're doing.
yeah,
So there may be other people out there who want to learn more about music or want to grow in the field. How can you educate them? How can you give them tips and advice? And there may be others who like enjoy watching what you're doing if they like your music. So you give them that behind the scenes kind of experience. I am working with a singer at the moment, and she's so I don't know. Maybe you can share your details or have Meghna share your details, and I can ask her because she's about to launch a new album. Maybe there's an opportunity we can look for, but I know even she struggles because it's one of those things where unless I like her and I like her music, it's unlikely that, you're going to get a lot of opportunities because of how subjective it is. So that's why you need to maybe make it more about the education you have to offer or the inside view you have to give, so that people you're not limited by the type of music. I hope I've answered the question. If not, please ask a follow-up question so I make sure I get that.
yeah.
So I'll get her name is Alexa Bash, and it's really interesting because I've been watching her progress in kind of how she's trying to promote herself online, to grow her following so that by the time she puts her album out, she has a following there ready to buy the album. So it's a lot that has to happen online to get more opportunities.
I think she can use Instagram, IGTV to create her presence and make a market for yourself. You have to showcase your talent, and then the people will start noticing you.
But also on the comment about stage fright, again, similar to what we said earlier to, I think it was John, stage fright is something everyone goes through, whether it's in front of the camera, whether it's on stage. You have to overcome it. You have to overcome it. And it's something I talk about a lot because I've been in this industry over 20 years, and like 20 years, I didn't put myself in front of the camera because I felt self-conscious, and I've seen such a big difference for myself since I've put myself forward that I feel like everyone needs to do this. Everyone needs to put themselves in front of the camera because it makes a difference. So as uncomfortable as it may feel, start practicing in front of a mirror, start recording it just for yourself. You don't need to show anybody, but just try for yourself, and watch yourself and see like, okay, this is where I can maybe improve in this area, or maybe I need to be standing a bit more because the more comfortable you are, then the more likely it is you're going to overcome that stage fright.
Yeah. Yeah, that those are very useful tips, Reem, and which also makes me think that like you are fortunate, and the kids who are planning a career in media these days are fortunate that they knew what they want and they selected a course which is related to the media field. But what if someone later at the career stage realized that I wanted to be in the media industry, but they've already done their graduation, they've already started working into a different field. Is there any scope or any kind of certifications available for such people who later want to come into this industry and who don't have any kind of a background?
So I want to tell you a little story, which is a true story, is that
Okay.
I was an executive producer at Ti22. So I was responsible for hiring everybody on the team, and we produced a lot of different shows. And then one day I got an email from HR, and they said, oh, we need to speak with you. And I was thinking, what have I done? Why does HR want to speak with me? And they said, oh, you've hired someone who doesn't have a degree. And I said, really? And I said, yeah, you've hired, this production manager. She doesn't have a degree. How is she on the team? said, I honestly didn't even notice she didn't have a degree. And I kind of thought about it and I realized that I didn't care. What had happened is she had filled her CV with so much relevant work experience, in my field, in my industry. Every question I asked her in that interview, she knew exactly what the right answer was. She had proven to be a great team member. And that was enough, So maybe not, again, the most popular answer or that people want to hear, but in our industry, it's the work experience that matters. The degree is great. The degree, fine, it's a background, it's knowledge, you have information, but it's the work experience on the ground that is going to help you get that next opportunity. So even if it's somebody who's coming later in life, maybe they didn't study it, I would say get on the internship work experience track, get as familiar as possible with what happens in reality on a set, what happens in reality in a production office, build that experience, and you'd be surprised how quickly you'd be employable in the industry. I've actually even had friends, I remember a few years ago, a long time ago, friends who came from the UK and they didn't have experience here. One of them was a nurse. She was nothing to do with media, nurse. And I sat there and I was like, well, what kind of experience have you done? And she said, well, I was responsible for coordinating with all the patients, and I was responsible for filing all the documents, and I was responsible for like cross-checking, and like every skill she had, or I could see how she can use that as a production coordinator. It was like literally transferable. So I said, okay, well, let's try it. Let's try it for a couple of months and see what happens. She ended up being awesome, and she worked with me for 2 years as a production coordinator, without the media background. Again, not I don't want to say you don't need a degree. That's not what I'm saying. The degree gives you a solid backing, great knowledge, great information. All I'm trying to emphasize is the importance of the work experience and seeing where your skills can fit in, because that's what matters at the end of the day. For me, whether you have an A at university or whether you know how to manage my next shoot, I'm going to pick the person who can manage my shoot.
That is great, Reem, that you pick up people on their skills and capabilities, because that is very important to see the people through what they have to offer on the platter.
Yeah, and it's which also, sorry, just to build on that, which is why now, whenever I'm hiring someone, there are two things I ask for. I can't even till now tell you where my team graduated from. I really don't know. But what I ask for is usually a video that they've done. So something that they've filmed and edited themselves, because I want to see what they're capable of doing. Alternatively, if they don't have that, I give them an assessment. So I'll give them a task to do and see how they respond to that task. Because we're in such a practical industry that you need to see, it's one thing to say you can do something, but I need to see you can do it.
Yeah. Moving on, we have another question from Mark, and he says, is it really important to buy expensive video equipment to start making independent videos and movies on my own? What is the minimum and ideal?
Excellent question. No, it's not important for you to buy expensive equipment. If you're doing it on your own, most phones have pretty decent cameras. So I wouldn't go out and start buying expensive cameras. You can probably do it with your phone at this point. What I would suggest you do is buy 3 things. Number 1 is a microphone, because sound is one of the most important components to any video you watch. It's actually 50% of your viewing experience. If someone has poor audio, they're going to turn your video off. So you need a microphone, and it doesn't have to be an expensive one. It can easily be a lapel mic, which most of them now, they'll like fit into the bottom of your phone. That's what you need, just to make sure you're capturing good sound. So definitely a mic. And the brand to look for is Bose, B-O-S-E. That's one of the best brands out there for microphones. Secondly, what you do need is a tripod, right? So if you're going to be filming any content, you don't want to have shaky content. You don't want to be relying on your hand. You want to be steady. You want to have a tripod that holds your phone up or holds your camera up. So definitely a tripod. And the third is probably a ring light. You want to make sure that all of your footage is well lit. Again, you don't need a big expensive light, just a ring light. And the reason it's a ring light is because it's round, the light actually, it's balanced across your face. So those are the 3 things I suggest you buy. it'll all like, put it all together, it's going to come to like under 500 dirham if you get like good equipment, but it could range even from 200 to 500 dirham. But that's what I think is the ideal bootstrapped package that you need to just get started.
I think that is a very manageable, thing. People can manage to buy these things, and phone is available with everyone these days. Yeah. So, carrying on the discussion, Reem, I would also because once the people reach their graduation level, it's fine. But is there any kind of a subject selection they should do in their secondary school days, which would help them in this field? Any kind of subjects, because I'm sure media is not as a subject in their primary and secondary years. So is there any kind of subject selection choices these kids should do so that they can build up a career on media later?
I think that's a really good question. I believe the fact that I did English helped, just because so much of our communication is written, and whether you enter into the world of journalism or whether you or even just with video, you have to write a lot of scripts, or so I believe that that's been helpful. Obviously, not everyone here would be looking at maybe English media, but having strong language, I think, has been helpful. I'm trying to think what else prior to that. Um, I personally did things like sociology, because it just, just in terms of you work with so many different types of people in so many different ways,
Mhm.
that could be helpful. Um, those are the main ones. Nothing else really comes to mind earlier on, because nothing scientific has ever helped me in my life, if I'm being honest. And I don't think there's much else that directly connects with media. I would say actually anything focused on public speaking, drama, theater, anything in that world. There are some similarities in
I
terms
think
of
these kind of
how,
extracurricular activities would help them,
yeah,
like debates and
yeah,
drama, which you're saying.
absolutely. Because, with all of that, putting on a play, there are a lot of correlations with putting on a TV show, the kind of planning that's involved, the kind of structure that's involved. So there are similarities. I'm not sure that it's helped, but it's good knowledge.
Yeah. So one thing, Reem, it just popped up in my mind because I am also associated with many schools and I've done workshop there. And when the principal or the career counselor there, they always ask us to talk about different professions and give the students idea about the professions which are existing in the market, both for the science students and the non-science background. But do you think that schools are still hesitant in promoting media as a career?
I think it depends where you are in the world, So
Yeah.
I've seen that, I think, in the Middle East, North Africa, I'm guessing parts of Asia probably,
Mhm.
because it's still a little different, and I think families and culture are still more traditional. Whereas I think, when you go to the Western world, it's far more prevalent and more acceptable and more established. So that's just what I'm guessing. I'm not as involved in that world, but I just see it from even Nusrat's question earlier.
Mhm.
It's I know that the way the mindset is locally is that it's not always perceived or seen as a legitimate career. And
Mhm.
that's what I think we need to work on in this part of the world.
Right. Um, with that, I would also like to add up, like, how the fresh media graduates, not whole of the batch, get placed with the university. So, and as you said, that internships play a very significant role. But what if, they have cleared their media courses and still not ended up with a relevant job? What kind of tips you would like to give them so that, they are able to look for the right opportunities?
I think something that Mark mentioned is that he's looking at creating his own content. So
Mhm.
if you're in a position where, okay, for whatever reason, it's not happening, you're not getting an opportunity, start creating content, start creating your own channel, start, at least when you're approaching an employer, and you show them that you've taken the time and the effort to produce something on your own, that really does help. It's like, okay, this is someone who cares. This is someone who's serious about getting into this industry. They've made an effort. So I would say if you are struggling, then take matters into your own hands, see what you can create on your own, start sharing that content. But I'm still a big believer of the internship work experience route. If you offer yourself up and you are persistent, you will get an opportunity, no matter at what stage. I do want to talk a little bit about graduates who I have seen. And I've seen some that are very arrogant. I've seen some that, because they've done a degree, and because during their studies they may have produced a project or directed a project, they come in like up here. They come in like, I'm a producer, I'm a director. And then I go, oh, I was like, so what have you produced? And they go, oh, well, I produced this project at university. I said, oh, at university. What else have you produced? Oh, and I did this one. Where did you do that? At university. Oh, another one at university. So what have you actually produced? So I just want to mention that it's very easy once you've done a degree that you're going to be exposed to all kinds of new ideas. You're going to produce your own projects. You're going to come out feeling, I'm a producer, I'm a director. But in the real world, you're still at the bottom of the pyramid, right? In the real world, although that's opened up your eyes to what's possible in that role, you do need to be willing to do everything. You do need to be willing. And the entry level, as well as being an intern or having work experience in our industry, is what's called a runner. And the reason they're called a runner is because you run. It's like whatever I need you to do, you run and you get it done like that. And I was a runner for 2 years. So I'm talking from a space of I've gone through this journey. I was a runner. I swept studio floors. I made tea. I bought props. I did whatever it is they needed me to do. And that's what made me valuable. So it made me valuable that, I then became a production assistant, and then I became a production manager. And then you start to not need, you don't do the jobs that no one wants to do anymore. You start doing things that matter and things that are interesting, but only if you've paid your dues. So be the person who is willing to do whatever it takes. Be the person who's willing to sweep the studio floor, to make the cup of tea, to collect the hard drive, whatever. And that you'll earn the respect of the producers on the team. And that's where you're more likely to get an opportunity, far more than somebody who comes in going, I've here's my degree and here's my A, and this is why I'm a producer. I'm like, okay, good for you. So just something I feel very strongly about, clearly.
Yeah, I think the will to learn and to accept the ground reality that there is you are a fresher and you have an opportunity to learn. You should be open to the thought and, do whatever comes in your way.
I would also say like having a sense of initiative. Like I remember, on one of my internships, so I worked at Disney. It was an internship at Disney for a few months. And they had it was a live daily studio show, and they had gifts and they had prizes that they would give away. So every day there'd be a competition and someone would win a prize. And there was a cupboard full of prizes, and no one could ever find the prize. Every day it was like, what was the prize? Where's the prize? And they'd go in, oh my God, where's the prize? And it was such a mess. And I remember it was such a simple thing that I was there with another girl. We're like, you know what? Why don't we organize this cupboard? Why don't we take out everything, organize it, label it? And the next day they were like, oh my God, we know where all the prizes are. And it's such a small thing, which on the face of it has nothing to do with media. It's not, but we made their lives easier, so just making their lives easier. It's like, okay, this is someone who's worth keeping around because they've been useful. So it's always like, how can you be useful to the organization or to the production by even just spotting these small things, which on the face of it, you might be thinking, I don't want to spend hours tidying that. Well, you know what? That's what's going to help you stay and get the next opportunity.
I think you should learn to volunteer, to grab the opportunity, first prove yourself, and then ask for things.
It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy, people who don't understand the opportunities available. When I'm like, would you like to come to a shoot? And they're like, oh, it's on a Friday. I'm like, so what? What are you going to learn? Come, it's like there needs to be, that understanding of these are all opportunities for you to learn and grow and build a career.
True. So Reem, is there any kind of recommendations about books or any thing they can watch to get a better understanding of this field, and which can answer most of their questions about their thinking process about this field?
I'll be honest, I don't think there is, because we're in
Hmm.
an industry that's always changing.
Evolving.
So what happens is you read something today, tomorrow it's redundant because there's like new equipment, a new way of doing something. So it's which is why, going back, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but it is the real life experience that matters. It's but anything out there, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, whether it's a documentary, by the time you've watched it or you've read it, it's out of date. That's how
Hmm.
quickly our industry changes. I mean, there are a couple of fun movies you can watch, that kind of make it, like, I remember watching, it's a really cheesy chick flick called The Morning Show. No, The Morning Show is great. Sorry, correction. The Morning Show is a great TV show which shows you what TV life is like. But I can think it was called, maybe it's also called The Morning Show, a movie a few years ago. And I
Hmm.
remember watching it and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. And I was like, because any movie that's set in a TV station at least gives you an understanding of the environment, but the
Hmm.
reality you're not going to get unless you live it, unless you go and try it.
Yeah. So, Reem, the pandemic, did it affect the media industry, and how is the current situation of media, and what is the future of job prospects in this field?
I think the pandemic has been great for our industry because it's opened up a lot of opportunities for everybody. It's no longer as important for you to be on TV, go to the studio. The fact that so much is happening on Zoom. I mean, we're doing this on Zoom. And
Yeah.
and the same is happening. The same is happening on TV channels. The same is happening online. I think two things happened: is that people are consuming a lot more content because people were
Mhm.
sitting there trying to find new content to watch. But then that's pushed a lot of people to start creating more content. So you've got an increase in consumption, you've got an increase in creativity and people wanting to put their stuff out there, which has made it all accessible. So you may not have thought before that you would ever do this, but now it's like, actually, now I can on my phone. I'll just film it and I'll upload it and I'll build my own audience. And what do I need a TV channel for? If I'm consistent online, I can build my own following and I can have just the same impact. And I think that's what's changed in the pandemic, is making everything a lot more accessible. And then you're seeing the need for hybrid experiences. So even now, working on the Expo TV show, it's hybrid. The whole of Expo is hybrid. We're expecting that people will be visiting, but there'll be a lot of people watching at home. So I
Mhm.
think people need to start thinking how to turn everything into both a physical and an online experience. And that's something that it was coming, but I think it's happened much faster because of the pandemic.
Yeah. So, Reem, it's almost 1 hour. We had this lovely conversation, and it was amazing to get such deep insight about this profession, and to learn from your journey and the wonderful tips and suggestions you have given. I'm sure the students and the parents here would definitely take away some important information. So, and if you guys still get more questions later after this webinar ends, you can email it to us. I'll try to reach out, Reem, and I'll try to get answers for that. And thank you all for taking out time and being a part of this whole process. Reem, just before we leave, I just want to ask you the last question. Is there any kind of experience you want to share as a takeaway, a last thing of the session?
Yeah, I actually want to share a very quick story about how I got my first break, but just to give you an idea of how you can get your first break. So I was obsessed with the idea of working at the BBC. And I realized that what I used to do was I used to record at that time on VHS, but I used to record all of the TV shows that I wanted to work on. And I would write down the names of everybody in the credits. So I'd write down, at the end of the show, you see all the different roles, and I'd write down all of their names. And I realized that all of the email addresses at the BBC were first name dot surname at bbc.co.uk. And I just emailed everybody. I literally emailed everybody. I said, hi, I'm a big fan of your show. I'd love to be, learning from you. And that's how I got my first break. I had a very popular show called BBC Watchdog reply and say, thank you so much for your email. When can you start? Giving me dates. Within a few weeks, I was sitting in BBC Watchdog. And just to build on that, BBC Watchdog, they actually used to have a lot of interns, right? So I remember, there were a lot of us. There were like 10 of us who were interning on BBC Watchdog. And on my last day at Watchdog, I stood there and I thought, when am I ever going to have this opportunity again? Like I'm standing in the BBC with a pass, I don't know when this will happen. So that afternoon, I literally walked from one department to the next department to the next one in that whole building. I went, hi, I'm an intern at BBC Watchdog. Today's my last day, so I'm available. I'd love to help you with your show. And, the first one said no, and the second one said no, and the third one said no. And I think it was around the sixth or the seventh one that said, oh, we're about to start a series on BBC Education. Would you be interested? Yes, I would. What can you do? What have you been doing? And next thing I knew, I was having an interview. And I think a couple of days later, I started on BBC Education. And so it's the one message I want to leave you with is it's all about taking action and thinking out the box. You're competing with so many people for these opportunities. The only way you're going to stand out is know what you want, go after it. Don't take no for an answer. A lot of people will say no to you. Eventually, someone is going to say yes. So make sure you're ready and just go for it.
That's a wonderful takeaway, Reem. I mean, it's so wonderful to hear that you were so enterprising and you had that zeal in you to go for it, and you were not hesitant in reaching out to people and asking for it. That is a very big thing, and I think we should come out of that shell and be open to go and ask for work. And then the whole story can change. Thank you, Reem. You have been very inspiring. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. And everyone out there, please feel free to reach out to Meghna. Always happy to help.
Yeah, I would love to have you soon again on my career talk. Thank you. Have a nice evening ahead.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a good evening ahead. Bye-bye.